everyone, Leani Lopez here with another episode of I Got Nothing, a podcast for exhausted writers. And today I'm joined by another exhausted writer. Please introduce yourself.
Hey everyone. First, Leani, thank you so much for having me on. I'm Lauren Nappi. I am a independently published writer. I'm an indie writer. I have 2 young adult romance novels out currently, The Fear of Falling Apart and Forget Me, which is my newest release. I'm a teacher by trade. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Great. And you've been writing for a really long time, right?
I have. So I would say that probably elementary school was when I just really discovered my love of writing. I have this like very vivid memory of being in like 3rd or 4th grade, and we had publishing hour. So we had time to write, and I was just really blessed. You know, being a teacher, they've taken so much creativity out of the curriculum. I'm an English teacher, and it's not part of our curriculum as much as it really should be. And I was just really blessed to go to an elementary school where we were always creative. We were always writing. We were publishing these little books. You know, I'm sure the teachers spent hours creating these little, I remember they had lines in them. They had spaces where we could draw pictures. And I remember writing this book about monsters, and the monsters had a ball. And I loved horror when I was a kid. I was like a twisted kid, I think. And I about Dracula and Frankenstein. So I loved creating characters and storylines, and I just loved reading. So as long as I can remember, I've just always wanted to. I love stories, whether it's a television or movies. I just love stories and creating stories. So that kind of is where my writing began way, way back in the day.
Yeah, actually, it's so funny because I had another guest who said something similar, and that was me as well. This is true story. Last week, my mother called me, and she was like, "I'm going through all this old paperwork, and I found a bunch of stuff from elementary school from you." And it was like a list of my favorite things. And then she goes, "Oh, you wrote a story here." And I was like, "I'm sorry." She's like, "Yeah, the ghost in Mrs. So and so's class." From like second grade, first or second grade. And I was like, "Please don't read that. I have no idea what it is."
The best is if you ever find your like middle school angsty poetry.
Oh my God, I found my journal. It's so embarrassing.
I found some middle school angsty poetry. I said, "Oh God, this needs to go in the garbage immediately.
Oh
No
my
one should
God.
see this."
That's amazing. And I feel like a lot of the writers I've spoken with, it all varies, but a lot of us, it really did start very early, just storytelling.
Yeah, I think that I was just very interested in being creative. I mean, even I'm an only child. So being a kid, I was always kind of like out in the backyard. You know, thankfully we had no social media. And I was out in the yard, kind of like running around, pretending I was like a woodland fairy princess, or like digging in the dirt, being like a, witch making potions out of mud.
I
And
was literally going to just say that.
we had nothing else to do, like
Yeah.
my students today don't understand. Like we really had nothing else to do. And, we played dress up, and we always played pretend. And so I think it was just, I loved kind of creating a storyline and a character. And so for me, that's kind of like where my writing started. But then I stopped writing for a long time because school
Yeah.
and college, and the irony of being an English major where you have to read a lot,
Yes.
but you
Yes.
can't write
Oh my
anything.
God, yes. That's exactly what happened to me. I barely wrote in college because
Yeah,
I was learning to write in college.
exactly. And it was so frustrating. And I was like, why am I not like, I'm not creative. I'm just writing essays and essays and essays. And finally, I took like some creative courses just to kind of get that out. But it wasn't, it wasn't like, a creative writing program.
Yeah.
And so I abandoned writing for a really long time just because I had no time to do it between starting my job right out of college, and being a teacher is overwhelming. They don't prepare you for it. You're kind of like smacked in the face on the first day of school. It's like,
Yeah, I am
no.
friends with a lot of teachers, and one of my friends left after like 3 years 'cause it
It's
was
not
just
easy.
it yeah, she was and she had a young son during that time, and that was even
Mm.
hard, with kids,
Yeah.
it's also hard. So, yeah, I hear that unfortunately, I hear that a lot. It's really frustrating for all these people who wanna teach our children, but then aren't given the time or the tools or money to do it.
Yeah, so it was kinda like for me, I had this vision of wanting to be an English teacher because I thought, "Oh, during the summer, I can write and I can have so much time." And you don't have the amount of time that you think you will.
Mhm.
And kind of like so like the general public thinks teachers are on summer vacation and we're like chilling at the beach every day, but there was curriculum that had to be written, and there was summer PD that had to be attended, and sometimes
Yeah,
I was going to conferences in other states, and I was like, man, I don't have like the time that I thought I was going to have.
yeah.
So it was I had to I had to come back to it. And yeah, I mean, I came back to it in a harsh way, but I had to come back to it.
And I feel like that's a common thread with writers, like, when I talk to them, is that it it really does reel you in. Like,
Hmm.
it really does, like, just gnaw at the back of your mind when you have this idea and you have to put it down on paper, but you don't have the time or the energy to do it. Like, if that idea does not go away,
Yeah.
it bugs the crap out of you until you write it down.
For me, it was that my mom died very unexpectedly when I was 24.
Mhm,
And I was, in the beginning of my career, and that really kind of like threw me for a loop, to put it mildly. And I was just kind of running on empty for many years. I think I was in a state of shock. I think I was not processing my grief at all. I was taking care of my dad. I had just gotten engaged. Like all my wedding plans were completely, thrown off, and I was not processing it. And I'd gone through so many different therapists, and at one point, a therapist said to me, "I really think you should, you know, you have to get these emotions out in some way that you feel, is healthy."
mhm.
And she said, "I think you should write. I think you should journal." But for me, it was so uncomfortable writing about myself or writing about my own
Yeah.
feelings.
Mhm,
So I kind of, put her advice to the side, and I said, I'll think about it. I don't know. And at some point I started writing. I don't even know what happened. I was reading a lot, and one time I just sat down at my laptop and I said, I think I'm gonna start writing. And I just started typing some stories, but they weren't the story. You
yeah,
start and then you're like, "Nah, this is like okay, but this isn't it."
yeah,
And yeah, and then I started writing my first book, which was about a young girl who had lost her mom, and it was better for me to process it through the lens of a fictional character and a fictional story. And it's not 100% my story at all. It's very
mhm,
fictionalized, but to process the emotions of grief through a story about grief was really what I needed. So that was kind of what brought me back to writing after so many years. It was that necessity to figure out what was in my head and to live it out and play it out cathartically through the writing process.
yeah.
So, and then that turned into my first novel.
Yeah, I that's a wonderful. I had a realization recently. The current book I'm working on, I've been trying to work on it since, like, 2016. I started it during National Novel Writing Month. I just wanted the one and only time I did that. And I had, like, this great basic idea, but it wasn't really clicking, and over the years, I would try to work on it, and it just didn't happen. And it only was within the last couple like, probably 1 or 2 years that I finally made headway and reworked it, and now I'm almost done with the first final draft or whatever, full draft. And I realized I couldn't write it before because that character is very angry, and I was still angry at the time.
Mm.
So, I had to process my emotions before I could help her process her emotions.
Yeah, I think people who don't write don't necessarily understand how personal it is.
Yeah.
At least for me. I mean, I know there's a lot of books out there that are, you know, I don't even know, they're very unhinged, very wild,
Yeah.
you know, but and I'm sure that, yeah, there's books that are created for marketability or shock factor, and it's still a business. But for me, I can't write a book that's not very deeply ingrained in my personal experience, or at least very much like something that I feel like I need to get out, or like,
Yes.
so I've tried writing like, a fluffy romance, or, like a silly rom-com, and I'm just not that kind of writer.
Mhm.
So I think you just get to know who you are as a writer, and where your voice fits. And I've tried to write things because they're popular or they're marketable or that's what's hot right now. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like,
Yeah.
that's not who I am.
Yeah, I when I used to work full time before I left that job, one of my coworkers was like, "Oh, you're a writer, you can do X, Y, and Z," and was just, like, really urging me to, like, just pick up random writing jobs
Mhm.
because to her, writing was writing, and I was trying to explain to her, I was like, I can't do that," and she's like, "Well, why not?" And she was a very argumentative person, if you couldn't tell. And I was like, "It just physically hurts me to do." And she, like, rolled her eyes.
Mhm.
And I used to have, like, a boss who would be like, "Oh, you're a writer. Here, write this, like, marketing copy or write this response to this person." And I'm like, "That's not how that works."
Mhm.
Like, if you have a story with some smut in a romance fantasy setting, I'm your person. I can't just write this fluffy response to this person complaining about something random. That it's writing is not universal in terms of, like, if you write one thing, you can definitely write all these other things. That's not how it works. It it just
Yeah,
doesn't work that way.
I think people get frustrated when they don't feel inspired, or they're trying to write something and they're like, especially I see this in my students when we're writing college essays, and you have to be inspired and you have to dig deep for your college essay. It's not it's not a fluff piece, and it's not, nonsense. They can't BS it. It has to be something that, comes from their experience, and something that shaped who they are. And it's not easy to write that. So I think people get frustrated when they're like, I want to write a book, and it's not coming out, and I have this idea, and it's like, it's super hot, and it's, buzzy, and everyone's going to want to read it. And it's like, but if it's not, that thing that's inside of you saying you have to write this, you have to
Yeah.
share this with someone,
Mhm.
I think it's really hard. And that's my advice a lot to people who are stuck and struggling, is if you're writing for, because it's like the hot thing, and ooh, romantasy, I'm going to write a romantasy. Okay, like that's fine, but if you don't have that passion, it's not going to come out on the page.
It is tough, and I think what a lot of people also don't realize is I know for me personally, when I am writing and when I am writing these emotional scenes, I'm feeling them as I'm writing them
Oh yeah.
because I am trying to put words to what I'm feeling in that moment. So when people are like, "Oh, I can't write this scene," and other people are like, "Just do it." I'm like, "No, you don't understand. Like, I have to be in that, like, it's a very
Mhm.
angry scene and I don't feel angry right now, or it's a really lovey-dovey scene and you're like, I wanna murder people today. Like, it does it's for me, writing is a very spiritual practice. It's very much connected to my health. I found I had badly declining health after I actually started writing full time, and that was because I was only ghostwriting for other people. I wasn't writing my own stuff. So it, like, made me sick
Yeah,
until I started writing my own stuff.
that's
Yeah.
got to be hard.
Yeah.
Because for me, yeah, I've always, thought about just my writing is so much for me first, and then it's for everyone else. And it's like I needed to do it at first for me, and then it was like, okay, and I didn't even wanna publish my first book. I read it and I was like, "This is sad, and this is depressing," and I was like, "Oh my god, this is like, I don't want people to know that I wrote this, and this is so, unhinged," and then I was kind of like, "Well, if this was the story I needed to heal, then maybe this is the story somebody else needs."
Yeah, I completely understand that.
But
Yeah.
I didn't at first, I was like, "I don't even really, like, want I don't even wanna do anything with this." It was like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
wrote this," but I was like, "I don't I'm not gonna do anything," and then I started sharing, with my beta readers, and I was like, "Oh, like, can you guys, like, check this out? Like, what do you think of this?" And people liked it, and people were like, "I loved it. I cried, I laughed," and I was like, "Really?" And I think in the beginning, you have imposter syndrome, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Nobody
Uh-huh.
wants to read this. Nobody likes this." And then especially being indie, it's really hard, and you're kind of like, "I don't even know what to do." I had no idea what to do when I was publishing my first book. My second one now, I know what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
My first one, I was like, I just threw it out there during COVID because I was like,
Mhm.
nothing else to do. I'm sitting around and inside all day, and I was like,
Yeah.
let's publish this book. So I think that you have to find like your motivation, and but also not be scared, because listen, people are publishing wild stuff and other people like it, or
Yeah.
they don't. It's a shock factor. Who knows? I don't know. But there's a my grandmother used to say there's a lid for every pot. And so that means that there's a reader for every book. So you just have to get it out there and find your people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my very first book was published in 2013, I wanna say, and I had worked on that for eons, and it was supposed to be a trilogy, and it never continued, but that was mostly because it was, A, during a time when indie publishing was not as big as it is now, and not
Mhm.
as easy as or not easy, but you know what I mean, and not as
Yeah.
accessible, let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
It's not as accessible as it is now, it was not. So, I never continued that, and I didn't really write anything after that, but when I left the job I had to work full time, I had been writing pretty consistently through fan fiction just to get back into writing
Yeah.
and just to do something just for me. So my 2 books that I have published were originally fan fictions that I transformed into their own originals. And I think the another reason why this current novel has taken so long, it's because it's the first original novel
Mhm.
without anybody's help or influence in my whole career,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that was really daunting for a while, and there there just reached a certain point where I was like, "I just have to do it.
Mhm.
I just have to figure out a way to do it." And so, like, creating writing rituals was a way to help. So, anytime I start a new project, I create a playlist for that project,
I love that.
and I try to keep the songs contained to only that playlist. And so what it does, it actually tricks my brain to think of the characters whenever one of those songs come on.
I love that.
So do you have any of your own writing rituals, or is it just when you can write, you do kind of thing?
Definitely in the beginning, I was kind of like, I would get in bed at night after everything, and I would sit there with my laptop, and I would just write
Mhm.
random, I would write a chapter, I would write a paragraph, whatever was there, whatever was coming out. And I'm a really, and not sloppy is like a bad word for this, but I don't plan anything. I am a complete pantser writer. I just kind of let the story tell itself to me. And sometimes it takes a weird turn, and sometimes I'll read it back the next day and be like, I don't know why the character did that, or I don't know, I didn't do it,
Yeah. You're
it
like,
was
"What? Why did they make that choice?"
it was just being downloaded to me from the ether, and I was putting it on the page.
Yeah.
But it sometimes it really feels like that,
Yeah.
and I just kind of like, so in the beginning, I think I was running on just like such absolute adrenaline slash grief, who knows what was going on, that I was just pouring, emotions onto the page. And but I always did it at night, and sometimes it would be like, 20 minutes of writing, and I was like, yeah, that's all I got, and I would go to sleep. And sometimes I would be, typing till 1, 2 in the morning, and my husband would be like,
Mhm.
"Are you gonna go to sleep?" And I'm like, "He's a night owl also." So we're a bad combo because we'll just stay up all night,
Yeah.
on the computer, doing stuff. And that was like kind of my flow in the beginning. And then when I was working on my second book, Forget Me, it was early in the morning because the book is inspired by my caretaking journey. And my dad had Alzheimer's. He passed from Alzheimer's in 2018, but he had a long battle with Alzheimer's and he was living with us. And I was taking care of him. So it was inspired by what my journey as a caretaker and what
Mhm.
he was going through, kind of like slowly losing his memory, losing his personality. I mean, Alzheimer's takes your physical
Yeah.
body, just kind of takes everything. Yeah, it's frightening. And I was really super young as a caretaker, so none of my friends were. My dad was a lot older than me. And so it was kind of like one of those things that I just was super unprepared. And
Mhm.
so when he was sick, he would wake up all hours of the day and night
Yeah.
and wander around, and I couldn't sleep. I don't think I slept for like 4 years straight. And I would, wake up because I would listen. What is he doing? Is he walking around?
Yeah.
And he would get up at like 4 in the morning. So I started getting up at 4 in the morning.
Mhm.
But to fill the time before work, I would write. And so I just started writing about everything that was going on. And it eventually transformed itself into a story because I, as a high school teacher, have so many kids that are caretakers for their
Yeah.
parents, for their grandparents, for siblings. And I was like, there is no young adult story about Alzheimer's, at least none that I'm aware of. And I tried to
Mhm.
find some, but I was like, there's none out there. And there are so many kids that are taking care of older people and they're so lost in their journey. But even I found that like so many of my readers are adults and they're adults that are taking care of their aging parents or grandparents. And they're like, the story resonated so much with me. But my rituals are always, just finding that like little nook of time, whether it's like a 20 minutes or if it turns into a few hours. So
Mhm.
it's, late at night or early in the morning. But I was even like stealing time. I was teaching at a college and I would have, 30 minutes in between classes and I would just open up my laptop and start writing something down.
Yeah.
I think anytime you can steal like a few moments, you have to just kind of take it. And I also would do playlists and I would say, I have 2 manuscripts right now that I haven't, like, done anything with, and I need to figure out what I'm doing, and I was writing a romantasy, and I was listening it's very, like, female rage, and I was listening to a lot of, like, Taylor Swift's Reputation to kinda, like, get into the character's head and where she was at, so I think that for me, music and writing goes a lot together.
Yeah. Yeah. The same with me. The project I just finished is the first season of a fantasy audio drama. So it was a script. I wrote a script, and all my friends have acted in it. We're I mean, at the point time this comes out, the first season will be fully released. But at the time we're recording, I just released episode 6 last week. And for each of my actors, because it's a very ensemble story, I didn't want one person to have to carry the whole thing.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of stories I wanted to tell, and I wanted to tell from different point of view, but it's an audio drama, so it's all through dialogue. And so each actor got a character sheet with a write up of their character and their own playlist. Because music is just, for me, like you said, music and writing really just goes hand in hand. It's just works with my brain. My brain, it just makes my brain happy.
Yeah, I think I like sometimes getting out to other places and writing not in my house, which is getting harder and harder because there are, I love the idea of like a third space and we talk a lot about this in education, like where our kids can go that's not home and school.
Yeah.
And I think it's, it's tougher and tougher nowadays. Where can I go that's not just work and home? So, I mean, I would go to coffee shops, I would go to the park, I would find, an outdoor spot and sit there. And sometimes people look at you like, "What are you what are you doing?" Like sitting, sitting here,
Yeah.
with your laptop out for, 2 hours. I guess now I think with work from home, it's becoming more common. But
Yeah.
when I was writing, I remember years ago, I was sitting at this coffee shop and I was sitting outside and they were closing up. And this woman came out. She goes, "We're closing now." I said, "Okay, just let me just finish this paragraph." I'm like, "Can I just, like, give me like 5 seconds?" Like, I mean, it was outdoors. They didn't need to like
Yeah.
kick me out. But I think, yeah, it's you sometimes have to shake out of if your ritual is not working for you, if
Yeah.
in the house is not working or you don't have that time. I mean, sometimes I'll just like open the notes app if like an idea comes to me and I have like
Yeah.
20 different notes of these like random blurbs and I'll send them to my best friend and she's definitely like my alpha reader. Like she reads it immediately. I would send her chapter by chapter as I was writing for immediate feedback, but I'll send her, I'm like, "Doesn't this sound like a great idea?" And sometimes she's like, "Yeah, that's awesome." Or I'm not reading that. Like I don't know what that is, but like, or she's nice about it. She's like, "Oh,
You need at least one person like that in your life to be like, "Sweetie,
yeah." Like,
I know you're excited, but but
she's
come
like,
on."
"I'll read anything you write, but also like, can it not be,
This.
some like weird monster smut? Because I'm not into that." She's like, I'm not into that." I'm like, "No, no, don't worry, that's not my vibe. I'm trying to expand my horizons, but not,
Yeah.
not that." I started writing adult. I wrote an adult urban fantasy manuscript. It was rough for me to like switch to it's not even like adult, it's like new adult. But I was always in the young adult space. Like I'm always thinking because that's just like my genre. I love reading young adult. I teach young adults, that was
Yeah.
my thing. So then I was like, all right, I'm gonna try like adult. And then it just turned into NA. And I was like, okay, well, we're getting closer. Like we're moving along. I love the first love, the young love. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. So I just like love recapturing like that kind of like moment or when you like find out who you are as yourself. So for me, like going into more adult stuff was like a little scary because I was like, I don't, I
Yeah.
don't know. These people have backstories that are a lot deeper and they have more trauma and they have more stuff going on. But it's good to sometimes switch it up. So like if your ritual is not working for you, if your genre is not working for you, try something crazy and different. And then if that doesn't pan out, it's all an experience. So
Yeah, I did that a couple of years ago when I was writing pretty regularly. When I was writing fan fiction pretty regularly because that's the writing I do just for me. Like it doesn't go anywhere.
Mhm.
It's my little writing cheat snack. And I got really annoyed with how certain people were portraying a character and it was a dark romance kind of thing and it's the
Mhm.
only one I ever did and it was rough going, but I tried it because I wanted to try something different, and I was like, "Cool, I did that. Not for me. I don't need
Yeah.
to do that again. I tried it the one time. It was fun. I'm not gonna probably make that a habit." But
Yeah.
it did teach me to push my characters further. Like maybe not to the degree I did in that story, but for the one I'm working on now, when I came back to it, I really was able to add a little bit more of a darker undertone to certain things because I felt more comfortable doing that.
Mhm.
And I think the first draft felt very YA when I first started writing it, which is fine, but later on that's not where I wanted to go with it.
Yeah.
And so I had to kind of rework that. But I had to have the experience of working on something else before I felt comfortable doing that in my own main project, I guess.
And I think that's the thing that people also have to kind of like if you're a new writer, if you're just starting out, or even if you're like a writer who feels stuck, I think you have to try different things and know not everything is going to develop into a fully like functional novel. Like sometimes
Yeah.
they go nowhere, and that's absolutely like okay. And I tell that to my students all the time. I taught a writing course, like an intro college level writing course, and I said, like, you can write something and it literally just is the first chapter and that's it. And you're like, you know what? Eh, I tried
Yeah,
it. It wasn't for
yeah,
me. And I agree. I think like, and if you're writing the same thing over and over again, try something different. I think it's important to kind of develop your genre, but I think you can write across genres. And my husband's like, "Oh, you need to like just like write more of these like YA romances. Like that's what like people, will expect from you." And my my next manuscript that's just collecting dust in the corner, a young adult fantasy, because I was like, I want to write fantasy. I wanted to do something different.
mhm.
And I loved the research and like I learned all about the different parts of a castle and different weapons. My Google search was very wild. And I was like, oh, what can you poison someone with that they'll get very sick, but they will not die?
The research that is required
It was
for some of
cool.
our stories is wild and fun.
I liked it, and it was different, and so I was kinda like, I really loved that you can do things in fantasy that you can't do in a contemporary setting, right? You can
Yeah.
have
Mhm.
magic, and so, and then I was like, "Oh, that's fun," and, you can still have the same, like, emotions and the same, drama, but it's like, now we're not talking about there's no cell phones, there's no texting. How are they getting messages to each other? You have to be a little more creative when you
Yeah.
don't have like the modern technology stuff to go back on. So yeah, I think that it's definitely I get that, people who are writers, they're like, no, I only write this. But it's like you can try different stuff and just, see what happens, which is also cool when you're an indie writer because you're not beholden to a publisher who's like, no, no, you only write this because
Yes.
this is your audience and this is what we're selling and
Mhm.
we're not interested in other stuff. And
Yeah.
I give it to trad authors who have their niche and then they try something different because sometimes it's not well received and they're taking a risk. And sometimes it's really well received. So sometimes at first people are like, ew, why are they writing out of their genre? And then people are like, oh, that was actually really good. So I
Yeah.
think that, just listen, do what you want, right?
Yeah.
Do what you want.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I don't like to do the same thing multiple times, which is why ghostwriting was so difficult because it's rom-com contemporary, so
Mhm.
it's very formulaic. And so for my own writing, because that's work writing, for my own writing, I tend to go completely opposite. So
Mhm.
my first 2 books were romance, more erotica leaning, and that was my first book, and then my s as an indie author, and then my second book was like a novella, which was more about drama and isolation and things like
Mhm.
that. And then my current book is about queer pirates because 'cause I'm like, "Hey, let's just go." And it's the first book in a series, but the way I'm structuring it is that each book is focused on a different character with different romance tropes. So I still get to do some of the stuff I really like, but I get to play with it a little bit more. But this audio drama I just released is not romance at all, it's fantasy.
That's
It's
so cool.
it's pure fantasy. There are romantic subplots between characters, but, it just and then my first audio drama was, like, horror. So I'm just like, I I have to work on the idea. I can't follow the line of like, "Well, I did this time and it worked, let me do that again." Like, my brain doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
It's just like, "Okay, I did that. It's on the shelf. What's the next thing?
Yeah.
What can I do next?" And I think sometimes people struggle because they feel themselves falling into that routine, and I feel like they feel like they have to stick to that genre, or
Mhm.
they have like you were saying, they have to this is what you're known for, so you have to do it. But the joy of being an indie author is that no, you don't.
Yeah.
You can do your own thing. It's awesome.
And I think there's, definitely something I was I mean, when I was growing not even growing up, but when I was younger, I don't know, Sarah Dessen, I don't know when she started publishing. I feel like I've just read her forever. And she writes just sweet, small town, summer YA romance. And I mean, some of it is super deep and the themes are fantastic, but she writes like that so good. And
Yeah.
all of our books are like that, so good. And I would just like, I read through all of them. My students read through all of them. They loved them. and I can see like that's her thing. So I think like you find an author where they do something really good and they replicate it and it really works for them. But I think that that's also the issue when you have that audience. So that's, when people are saying, "Oh, I want to only be a trad author." It's like, well, sure, but then you lose a lot of control over your
Yeah.
work. My husband's a graphic designer and he designs my book covers, and it's like, a really great experience with us. Like, he doesn't like love reading a young adult romance. He's like, "I don't know if this is for me." He's like, "You're a good writer," but he's like, "I don't know." Um,
Yeah. Sounds
uh,
about right.
he hasn't read any of my like more racier stuff. He's like, "I don't know if I want to read that." But it's nice that we work on the cover together. We come up with a concept and a design, and he does such a great job executing like exactly what we're thinking. And you don't have any of that, when you're trad published. And I think being trad published is amazing. I would love to be traditionally published. Like, yo, agents, find me. Um, manuscripts chilling. But I think that it also is a give and take.
Yeah.
And it's tough. I know people who've been trad published and their book kind of really didn't go anywhere. And they thought they thought they were going to be a New York Times bestseller. And they were very, very sorely, saddened by the process that it wasn't what they thought it was. So, I think you just always have to, again, do what you want to do and know what you're getting into. I think you just still have to do what's in your heart and tell the story you want to tell, whatever that is. It could be crazy monster smut. It could be, a sweet, fluffy romance. It could be anything. But if you
Yeah.
feel like that's what you need to put out into the world, you should do it no matter what your genre is.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one of the best piece of writing advice I got was back in college. I I actually had a creative writing workshop one semester, and it was the best class out of my entire college career because it was literally just a small group of upperclassmen sharing like whatever story they're working on and getting instant feedback from week to week.
Mm,
And it was drafts of my very, very first novel that I was sharing, and they came back with a lot of notes about the dialogue between these two characters, and they were saying that it was very difficult for them to tell them apart.
mm.
And that was sort of the first time my brain realized, "Oh yeah, people speak differently."
Yeah.
And and so by just putting that into my head, that little nugget of advice has carried me through to now, where now my writing has been so influenced by it that it's completely character driven. And I'm like, how would this character talk and what would they say? How would they react? And it actually helped me develop my own writing voice.
Yeah.
And so tying, everything we were saying together, even if you're jumping from genre to genre, even if you're doing a novella first and then like a podcast next or, books here and there, you're still developing your own voice. And once you found your voice, oh man, it feels so good
Mm,
when you're writing. It really does feel good to just be like, yeah, this is my piece of writing. This is
mhm.
where, like, to feel proud of what you're writing.
Yeah.
And especially when other people call, like, I've had friends when I was like, yeah, this thing is gonna happen, like when I was directing the audio drama, and a couple of them who have read some of my stuff were like, that is the most you sentence I have. You are so gleeful right now because you're going to emotionally destroy people.
I love emotionally destroying people. That's what I do in my book. I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna make you sob, and then you're gonna be so uplifted at the end. That's my genre, whatever that genre is.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I feel like following my heart and doing what I've wanted to do has become infinitely more fulfilling than anything I did in the past. Like these last 2 years actually being like, I'm going to work on this audio drama that's been chomping at the bit for a decade, and I'm going to put it out there, and you just feel so empowered when you're like, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to write this thing, and then you write it and you're like, hell yeah.
I think people don't understand that, and I think people who are not creatives don't, whatever that means, right? Whatever art you create. And there's so many, there's, just the wide variety of whatever people create. And I think that people don't understand. It feels like what I don't have children, but I imagine this is what it feels like to like give birth.
Yeah, a little bit.
You
Yeah.
create something, it is so much a part of you, and then you send it out into the world and you're terrified about what's going to happen, but it feels so fulfilling to say I'm going to do this thing, and then you actually do the thing, and then you get to like kind of like hold it in front of you. And I think that that
Yeah.
is something that a lot of people don't get to experience. And I think that we, looking at it from the educational side, I see that like we don't build that in our young people, that people are not creating, they're not doing. And I love that young people are becoming more creators, whether it's content
Yes.
creators or
Mhm.
they're podcasting or they're doing a TikTok. I mean, please stop getting up in the middle of my class and doing a TikTok. um, we don't need to see that, right? And I'm in New York, so we banned cell phones for next year, so I'm hoping there's no spontaneous TikToking.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
but I think that, there's so much joy that comes from creating, and
Yes.
there's so much satisfaction that comes from creating, and we have such a mental health crisis in our country, and I think it's
I
that,
mean, look at the country.
well, and I see it in young people. They're so sad. They don't know what to do with themselves. They don't know what to do with their lives. And I think if we have more creativity, if people are creating, if people are making something, they will feel so empowered and inspired and so good about themselves.
Yeah.
And we need more of that. We need more of the creativity. We need more people sitting down and saying, I'm gonna, even if it's an angsty poem, right? If
Mhm.
you're 13
Yeah.
years old and you're writing this angsty poem in your journal, we need more of that. And I think that, maybe the scroll and the social media kind of like took that away from a lot of people. And that's how we're filling that time. But for me, going back to like the rituals, like putting everything away and saying, this is the thing that I'm going to do for myself, like right now, whether it's reading a book or writing, it's like you have to disconnect. And it's really hard to do, like in modern
Oh, yeah.
society, to disconnect.
Yeah.
People say, just disconnect. Like it's like an easy thing. It's like when you tell somebody, just calm down. Thank you.
Oh my god, yeah, has
That
that
works.
ever worked?
Woof, that, no,
No, it has never worked. No
not
one
once.
I know has ever calmed down after someone has told them to calm down.
Don't tell people to just relax.
"Oh, why
Somebody
didn't I think of that? Silly me."
genius,
Like
but I think like, the piece of writing advice that I always kind of think it is the best one, and it's so universal. It's just like write what you know.
Mhm.
And I don't even mean like write what you know. Like I don't know anything about castles and princesses, and that's definitely not like something I know. But I think like write the emotions you know.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think some people to just sort of wrap things up, the advice I would give to new indie authors, when someone says write what you know, I think a lot of people tend to take that literally.
Yep.
So they tend to be like, well, I don't know how to be a monarch or I don't know how to be a pirate, But it's more about the emotion. It's like, yeah, okay, I personally don't know how to be a pirate captain, but I know how to be really fucking angry.
Yep.
And I know how to write about how that makes me feel and write how I react to that anger.
Absolutely.
And that is what I'm doing. I'm writing what I know and I'm using the lens of fiction to do it, but I'm still staying true to who I am and to my feelings and what I feel.
And that's what I think books are about. Books are about how they make us feel. And we connect through literature, and we read to know that we're not alone in our emotions, in our experiences. And the thing that I would tell indie authors is like dig into that emotion, dig into the feelings that you know, and just be authentic and don't be afraid. I think I spent a lot of time being really afraid to share my work with people because
Mhm.
I thought, oh, I'm not like a real author. And I fell into
Yeah.
that trap.
Yeah.
And, if you have something that you want to say. And my other indie advice is get a great editor. Get a
Yep.
good editor that's gonna dig into your work and is gonna push you, and get good beta readers that are gonna push you. Create your little writing community. I'm part of an amazing writing community with a bunch of amazing writers that give great feedback with one another. And I think you just have to don't second guess yourself, and don't be afraid. Like,
Yeah.
people put wild stuff out there on the internet and people love
Yeah.
it. Go for it,
Yeah.
like,
Exactly.
just don't get up in the middle of
Exactly.
my class and do a TikTok dance.
I think that's the perfect way to wrap this. Well, thank you for chatting with me, Lauren. How can people find you online?
So you can definitely connect with me on Instagram. That is my primary writer platform, at Lauren Nappi Writes. You can find my books on Amazon. So Forget Me is my current release, centering Alzheimer's disease, and proceeds from that novel will support the Alzheimer's Foundation. So that's really important for me. Yeah, and please, connect with me online. My books are also on Kindle Unlimited, so they're very accessible. And yeah, I hope to kind of get out there and start doing some events. So if you're in New York and you kind of see me around, stop by and say hi.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for this episode of I Got Nothing. And as usual, happy writing.